I thought I was used to being the invisible resident. But I never expected my 8-year-old son to be turned into a ghost at the HOA Christmas Spectacular when the 36th gift was torn open amid cheers. He just sat there clutching his sleeves, staring at the empty space under the community tree. I did not scream. I simply walked out, and within 48 hours I executed a plan that made the entire board panic enough to drag me to small claims court. My name is Chloe Reed, and for the last 10 years I have told myself that I'm a woman of logic. As a senior analyst at Northbridge Analytics Group, my entire career is built on the foundation of data patterns and predictable outcomes. If you look at a spreadsheet long enough, it tells you the truth. But HOA life is the one data set I have never been able to interpret correctly. I was 37 years old, driving a rented SUV through the slushy streets of Willow Creek Estates, telling myself a lie that no amount of data could support. I told myself this year would be different. The logic behind my return to the annual HOA Christmas Spectacular was flimsy. It was based entirely on a single email from Marilyn Crow, the HOA president, sent 3 weeks ago. It read, "All residents are invited. I want the whole neighborhood together. It doesn't feel right without everyone." That was it. Just 15 words. But when you have spent the last 5 years as the backup resident, the one only called upon when the golden families are busy or when there is a mess to be cleaned up, 15 words of inclusion feel like a contract. I wanted to believe that time had softened the sharp edges of HOA politics. I wanted to believe that now that I had Evan, my 8-year-old son, the dynamic had shifted. I convinced myself that even if Marilyn did not respect me the way she respected her inner circle, she would at least respect Evan. He was a neighborhood kid. He was innocent. He was dues paying. I parked the car in the guest spot outside the community center. It looked picture perfect, exactly the way Marilyn liked it. Wreaths on every lamppost, twinkling white lights lining the walkways, exactly 500 bulbs per house. No more, no less. Per Rule 4.2, a blow-up snowman waving manic cheer on the lawn, exactly 4 feet tall. Per Rule 7.1. Beside me, Evan unbuckled his seatbelt. He was wearing his best sweater, the navy blue one with the reindeer that he had picked out himself because he wanted to look handsome for the neighborhood party. "Do you think she got the Lego set?" Evan asked, his eyes wide and bright. He had been talking about a specific space station set for months. "I put it on the wish list I sent to the board. We will see, buddy," I said, reaching over to smooth his hair. "Remember, it is not about the presents. It is about community spirit." "I know," he said, nodding solemnly, "but I really hope the HOA Santa remembered." We walked to the double doors, my hand gripping his a little tighter than necessary. The air smelled of wood smoke from the approved fire pit and impending snow. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and pushed inside. The heat hit us first, stifling and smelling intensely of cinnamon potpourri. Then came the noise. The favored families were already there along with their kids. The main hall was a chaotic explosion of sound and color. But what stopped me dead in my tracks was the tree. It was a monument to HOA favoritism. It stood 8 foot tall, frosted with fake snow, but you could barely see the bottom branches because of the mountain of gifts beneath it. It looked like the back room of a high-end toy store had collapsed into the community center. The wrapping paper was color-coded gold and silver, shimmering under the lights. "You made it." Marilyn appeared from the refreshment table, wearing a pristine apron and holding a glass of approved non-alcoholic punch. She gave me a one-armed hug that barely grazed my shoulder before pulling back. "Evan, look how big you are." She patted his head as if he were a dog she was not particularly fond of, then immediately pivoted toward the tree. "All right, everyone. The lighting is perfect right now. Let's get seated. I want to get the opening on video." She pointed to a tripod set up in the corner of the room. A ring light was already glowing, casting a harsh studio-quality glare over the armchair where she planned to sit. This was the Marilyn Crow Show. We were just the cast members. I guided Evan to a spot on the carpet near the sofa. He sat cross-legged, his posture straight, his hands resting on his knees. He looked so small against the wall of boxes. The favored board families were on the sofas, looking effortlessly glamorous in matching cashmere. Their kids were already vibrating with energy, eyeing the pile like vultures. "Okay, camera is rolling," Marilyn announced, her voice pitching up an octave into her social media hostess persona. "Merry Christmas, everyone. Look at this bounty from our generous community fund." She sat down and began calling out names. The first gift was a large, heavy box. "Little Liam from the Golden family," she shouted. Liam tore into it. It was a high-end gaming console, the latest model. The room erupted in cheers. The board members whistled. Marilyn zoomed the camera in on Liam's face. Next, Sophie, a massive dollhouse. Noah, an electric ride-on car. Evan sat perfectly still. He smiled as the other kids screamed in delight. He clapped when they held up their toys. When Marilyn reached for the next box, I saw Evan's body tense slightly. He sat up a little straighter, his eyes locking onto the tag in her hand. Another for Liam, a stack of video games. Sophie, a designer coat. The rhythm established itself quickly, and it was brutal. Name after name was called, and none of them were Evan or even mentioned our family. But I did not care about me. I sat there, my stomach twisting into a cold, hard knot, watching my son. With every name Marilyn called that wasn't his, Evan would inch forward, his face full of expectant hope. And then when the name was read, he would sink back down. It was a physical blow every single time. He wasn't greedy. He was just waiting for his turn. He trusted the system. He trusted that the HOA was fair. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. The floor was disappearing under a sea of torn gold and silver paper. The noise was deafening. Batteries were being inserted. Plastic was being ripped. Electronic beeps and boops filled the air. Liam had a pile so high he could hide behind it. Evan was still sitting with his hands on his knees. His smile was gone. He was not looking at the tree anymore. He was looking at his hands. He was twisting the cuff of his navy blue reindeer sweater, pulling at a loose thread until I thought it might snap. I started counting. I could not help it. It is what I do. I counted 12 gifts for Liam, 10 for Sophie, 9 for Noah. That was 31 gifts for the favored kids, plus gifts for the board members and even a few for Marilyn's husband Frank, who was sitting in his recliner drinking punch and ignoring the commotion. 36 gifts had been opened. The area under the tree was clearing out. There were only a few flat envelopes left and maybe 2 small boxes tucked way in the back. I stood up. My legs felt heavy, like I was wading through concrete. I walked over to the tree, maneuvering around the debris of the favored family's happiness. I crouched down and began reading the tags on the remaining packages. To the Golden family, love HOA. To Frank from Marilyn. To Liam from Community Santa. I moved branches aside. I checked behind the tree. I checked under the skirt. Nothing. There was not a single box, bag, or envelope with the name Evan Reed on it. The room was still loud, but for me, the sound dropped away, replaced by a high-pitched ringing in my ears. I looked up. Marilyn was laughing, holding the camera steady as Liam held up a pair of expensive sneakers. I looked at Evan. He was looking at me. His face was pale. His eyes were huge, shimmering with a wetness that he was fighting with every ounce of his 8-year-old strength to hold back. He looked terrified. Not scared of monsters, but terrified of a sudden invisible eraser. He leaned toward me, and in the chaos of the room, his voice was a ghost of a sound. "Mom," he whispered. "Did the HOA forget me?" The question hit me with the force of a physical slap. It was not an accusation. It was a genuine question. He was trying to find a logical explanation for why he was the only person in the room with empty hands. He was trying to figure out if he existed. I felt a coldness spread from my chest out to my fingertips. It was a clarity I had not felt in years. The hope I had driven in with the delusion that we were part of this community disintegrated instantly. I turned to Marilyn. She had just lowered the camera to check the footage. "Marilyn," I said. My voice was not loud, but it cut through the noise. Marilyn looked up, annoyed at the interruption. "What is it, Chloe? Move out of the frame. You are blocking the tree. Where are Evan's gifts?" I asked. The room went quiet, not silent, but the chatter died down. The board members looked up from their phones. Marilyn blinked, looking genuinely confused for a split second, and then a look of casual realization washed over her face. It was a shrug of a look that said, "Oops." "Oh," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "I must have left them in the storage closet. Or maybe I did not get around to wrapping them. I was so busy with the big things for the core families." "You did not get around to wrapping them," I repeated. "There are 36 gifts here for the favored kids. You are telling me you forgot the son of a dues-paying resident entirely." "Oh, stop it," Tori chimed in, rolling her eyes. She was unwrapping a new tablet. "Don't make a scene over a gift, Chloe. It is Christmas. Why do you always have to make everything about you?" "It is not about me," I said, my voice steady, dangerously calm. "Evan is sitting right here. He has not opened a single thing." Marilyn sighed, the long-suffering sigh of a martyr. "Chloe, honestly, he is a child. Children forget fast. I will go out tomorrow and buy him something. I will take him to the dollar store or get him that game he likes. It is not a tragedy." She looked at Evan, who was trembling now, a single tear tracking down his cheek. "Evan, honey," Marilyn said, her voice bright and fake. "The HOA will get you something later. Okay? Don't be sad. Look how happy your neighbors are. Smile for the camera." She raised the phone again. She was going to film him. She was going to film my son's humiliation and frame it as a heartwarming moment of community sharing. That was the moment. If I stayed, if I let him sit there and accept a pity gift tomorrow, I would be teaching him that he was secondary. I would be teaching him that his pain was an inconvenience to the board. I would be teaching him that he had to beg for a place in this neighborhood. I looked at the mountain of trash on the floor, the discarded paper worth more than the effort she had put into my son. I walked over to Evan. I did not yell. I did not flip the tree. I did not scream at the board or slap the phone out of Marilyn's hand. I picked up Evan's coat from the chair where we had laid it 20 minutes ago. "Stand up, Evan," I said softly. He looked at me confused. "Mom, put your arms in," I said, holding the coat for him. He stood up, sliding his arms into the sleeves. I zipped it up to his chin. I put his hat on his head. Then I put on my own coat. "Where are you going?" Frank asked from his recliner, speaking for the first time. "The potluck dinner is in an hour." "We are leaving," I said. "Don't be ridiculous," Marilyn snapped, lowering the camera. The ring light reflected in her angry eyes. "You just got here. You are going to ruin the spectacular because of a mix-up." I said I would buy him something tomorrow. "It wasn't a mix-up," I said. I looked her dead in the eye. "And we won't be here tomorrow. If you walk out that door," Tori hissed, "don't expect us to waive your next fine. You are being a psycho." I looked at Tori, surrounded by thousands of dollars of merchandise, clutching her new tablet. I looked at Marilyn, who was more concerned with her video footage than the neighborhood kids' tears. "I don't expect anything from you," I said. "That is exactly the point." I took Evan's hand. His palm was sweaty and cold. I squeezed it, letting him know I had him, that he was tethered to me, that I saw him. "Let's go, baby," I said to him. We walked to the door. The sound of our boots on the tiled floor was the only noise in the hall behind us. The room was frozen. No one moved. No one spoke. The blow-up snowman was still waving in the window, manic and hollow. I opened the door and the cold air hit us sharp and clean. We stepped out into the night, leaving the warmth, the lights, and the 36 gifts behind us. I closed the door firmly. I did not slam it. I just closed it. And just like that, the war with the HOA began. The drive back to our townhouse was defined not by what was said, but by the suffocating weight of what was not. Usually the car ride after an HOA event is a time for decompressing. In the past, I would spend the drive making excuses. I would tell Evan that Marilyn was just stressed, or that the board did not mean to be sharp, or that the noise was just too much for everyone. I would spin a web of soft lies to cushion him from the hard reality of the neighborhood's indifference. Tonight, I said nothing. Evan sat in the back seat, still wearing his coat, his seat belt cutting across the navy blue reindeer sweater. He did not ask to turn on the radio. He did not ask if we could stop for hot chocolate, which was our usual tradition. He just stared out the window at the passing street lights, his reflection, a pale ghost against the glass. I watched him in the rear-view mirror every few seconds. I was waiting for the tears. I was waiting for the tantrum, the confusion, the wail of injustice that an 8-year-old is entitled to when he has been publicly humiliated. If he had cried, I would have known how to handle it. I could have offered comfort. I could have hugged him until the sobbing stopped. But he did not cry. He just stared. His eyes were dry and wide, fixed on a point in the distance that I could not see. That silence terrified me more than any scream could have. Tears are a release. Silence is a fissure. It meant that the hurt had gone past the point of immediate reaction and had settled deep inside him, cracking the foundation of his self-worth. He was not processing a bad night. He was processing a new reality where he did not matter in Willow Creek Estates. We pulled into the driveway of the townhouse I had bought after the divorce. I turned off the engine. The silence in the car was instantly replaced by the ticking of the cooling metal. "We are home, bud," I said softly. Evan unbuckled his seatbelt. The click sounded like a gunshot in the quiet cabin. He opened the door, slid out, and walked to the front porch without waiting for me. By the time I gathered my purse and locked the car, he was already inside. I walked into the hallway and heard the door to his bedroom close. It was a soft sound. He did not slam it. He did not throw a fit. He just closed it. Click. That sound broke me. It was the sound of a boy resigning himself to solitude. It was the sound of a child who had learned in the span of 2 hours that it was safer to be alone than to be with neighbors who were supposed to welcome him. I stood in the hallway, still in my coat, shaking. The adrenaline that had propelled me out of the community center was fading, replaced by a cold, lucid rage. My phone began to buzz in my pocket. It had been vibrating intermittently the entire drive home, but I had ignored it. Now, in the silence of the townhouse, the vibration felt aggressive against my hip. I pulled it out. 5 missed calls from Marilyn. 3 missed calls from Tori, the board secretary. Then, a text message from Frank, the treasurer. I stared at the screen. Surely, I thought this would be an apology. Surely the man who had sat silently in his recliner while a neighborhood kid was erased had woken up. The text read, "Hey kid, hate that you left early. Marilyn is upset. Also, the HOA landscaping bill came in higher than expected this month. Can you transfer $500 from your analytics budget? Let me know." I stared at the number 500. He did not ask about Evan. He did not ask why I had walked out. He did not mention the 36 gifts versus 0. He just wanted $500. A laugh bubbled up in my throat, bitter and sharp. It was so absurd that it felt almost like satire. But it was not satire. It was HOA life. Then came a voice note from Tori. I debated deleting it unheard, but I needed to know the narrative they were constructing. I pressed play. Tori's voice filled the kitchen, tiny and distorted by the speaker. I cannot believe you, Chloe. You are seriously psychotic. Marilyn is crying. You ruined the whole vibe. We were having a great night and you had to make it about you and your drama. Liam is asking why Aunt Chloe is so mean. I hope you are happy. You are destroying community spirit. The voice note ended. I was destroying community spirit. I was the mean one. I looked at the phone, then at Evan's closed door. For years I had accepted this dynamic. I had accepted the role of the provider, the fixer, the one who kept the peace. I paid extra dues when the fund was short. I set up their spreadsheets. I managed their crisis reports. I did it because I thought that if I made myself useful enough, eventually I would be valuable enough to be respected. But looking at that text from Frank asking for cash while my son sat in a dark room wondering if he existed, something inside me snapped. It was not a break. It was a realignment. I walked to the dining table and opened my laptop. I did not go to social media. I did not text back. I went straight to my financial dashboard. I am a data analyst. I understand flows, assets, and liabilities. For the last decade, I have treated the HOA like a volatile asset that needed constant infusion to remain stable. I had built a fortress of financial security around them, thinking it was my duty. I navigated to my estate planning folder. I had set this up 3 years ago right after I got the promotion at Northbridge Analytics Group. I wanted to make sure that if anything happened to me, the neighborhood would be taken care of. I opened the life insurance policy. Primary beneficiary Evan Reed. Contingent beneficiary HOA fund administered by Marilyn Crow. I looked at the numbers. If I died tomorrow, Marilyn would control the money I had earmarked for community improvements. I opened my investment accounts. Transfer on death Marilyn Crow. I opened the special HOA emergency fund I had started for the board because they were not good with savings. Balance $18,000 fully funded by me. I sat back, the glow of the screen illuminating the dark kitchen. I had been funding the very people who treated my son like a ghost. I was the bank. I was the safety net. And in return, they gave my son nothing, not even a wrapped box of socks. Then I saw something that made my blood run cold. On the dashboard of my main brokerage account, there was a small icon in the corner. Authorized viewers. I clicked it. Marilyn Crow read-only access last login today 4 hours ago. My breath hitched. I had given her read-only access years ago when I was helping them refinance the community pool, so she could see that I had the assets to back the loan. I had forgotten to remove it. She had logged in today. She had logged in before the party. Suddenly, the email she sent 3 weeks ago made sense. All residents are invited. I want the whole neighborhood together. She had not emailed me because she missed my spreadsheets. She had emailed me because my quarterly bonus had hit my account 3 weeks ago. She had seen the number jump. She knew I was flushed with cash. She wanted me in the room not to be part of the neighborhood, but to be reminded of my obligation to them. The mix-up with the gifts was not an accident. It was a power play. She knew I had money, so she felt no need to spend HOA funds on Evan. In her mind, I could afford to buy him whatever he wanted. So why should she bother? She was watching my money. She was tracking my net worth like a hawk, calculating her share. I felt violated. It was worse than if she had read my diary. She was counting the coins in my pocket while starving my son of belonging. I picked up my phone. It was late Christmas Eve. But my attorney, Sloan Mercer, had an emergency portal for high-value clients. I did not care about the holiday surcharge. I typed rapidly, my fingers flying over the keys.
Urgent.
Revoke all third-party access to my accounts immediately. Remove Marilyn Crowe as administrator for the HOA Emergency Fund. I need to appoint a corporate trustee until further notice. Freezing all auxiliary accounts linked to the board. I will sign whatever digital forms are needed tonight. I hit send. Then I went back to the brokerage site. I found the revoke access button next to Marilyn's email. I hovered the mouse over it. For a second, I hesitated, not out of guilt, but out of habit. I knew that the moment I clicked this, she would get a notification. She would know I had cut the feed. It would be a declaration of war, far louder than walking out of the party. I thought of Evan pulling the loose thread on his sweater. I clicked. Access revoked. I did not stop there. I went to the special funds for the favored families events. I could not take back what I had already gifted legally, but I could stop the automatic monthly contributions. Cancel recurring transfer. Cancel. Cancel. I went to the joint emergency fund I shared with the treasurer. Transfer balance to primary checking. Close account. I worked with surgical precision. I did not cry. I did not shake. I was Northbridge Analytics' top problem solver, and I was finally solving the problem that was draining my life. I spent the next hour documenting everything. I downloaded the security footage from the cloud. I realized with a jolt that I had auto backup on my phone, and it might have caught audio from the party, even if I was not filming. I checked. It had not recorded video, but I had a live photo from right before we left. It was a 3-second clip. It showed the tree. It showed the mountain of gifts. And in the corner, it showed Evan, small and empty-handed. I saved it to a secure drive. I screenshotted Tori's texts. I downloaded the voice note. I screenshotted Frank's request for money. I created a folder named Timeline. I was not just leaving. I was building a case. I did not know what for yet, but my gut told me I would need it. Once the digital fortress was secured, I closed the laptop. I stood up and walked down the hall to Evan's room. I knocked softly. Evan. Yeah. His voice was small. I opened the door. The room was dark, lit only by the street lamp outside. He was lying on top of the covers, still in his clothes. He had taken off his boots, but he was still wearing the reindeer sweater. I sat down on the edge of the bed. He rolled over to face me in the shadows. His eyes looked like deep pools. "Mom," he whispered. "I am here, baby." He hesitated, then asked the question that I knew was coming. The question that broke my heart into 1,000 jagged pieces. Did I do something wrong? He sounded so sure that he must have. In his world, punishment followed a crime. If he was punished with silence and emptiness, he must have committed a crime. "No," I said, my voice fierce and low. I reached out and took his hand. "No, Evan, you did absolutely nothing wrong. You were perfect. You were polite. You were kind. Then why did the HOA forget me? Why didn't Santa come to the party for me?" I took a breath. I could not lie to him anymore. I could not tell him she forgot. That was a lie that protected her, not him. Marilyn made a mistake, I said firmly. A very big, very bad mistake. And the reason we left is because I will not let anyone treat you like you are invisible. You are the most important person in my life. If they cannot see that, they do not get to see us. Is she mad? It does not matter if she is mad. I said, what matters is that you are safe and that you know you are loved by me. Do you understand? He nodded slowly. Okay. I am going to make sure this never happens again. I promised him. I am going to change everything. He squeezed my hand, then relaxed slightly. Can I take off this sweater now? It itches. I laughed. A small wet sound. Yes, take it off. I helped him change into his pajamas. I tucked him in. I kissed his forehead. Good night. Mom. Good night, Evan. I left his door cracked open so he could see the hall light. I went back to the living room and poured myself a glass of water. I stood by the window, looking out at the snow that was starting to fall. My phone lit up again. Another text from Marilyn. You are being incredibly selfish. I have a headache now because of you. Call me. I looked at the message. The old Chloe would have called. The old Chloe would have apologized for causing a headache. The old Chloe would have transferred the $500 to Frank just to smooth things over. But the old Chloe stayed in that hall with the 36 gifts. I deleted the thread without replying. I had revoked their access to my money. Now I was revoking their access to my guilt. If they wanted to play games with my son's heart, they were about to discover that I was done playing by their rules. I was going to rewrite the entire rule book. And the first rule was simple. Evan comes first. I stared at the falling snow, feeling a cold hard resolve settle in my chest like armor. I was not a resident anymore. I was not a volunteer. I was a mother. And God help anyone who stood in my way. The sun rose the next morning with a blinding, deceptive brightness that bounced off the fresh snow, making the world look clean. Inside our townhouse, the air felt heavy, suspended in that strange vacuum that exists after a catastrophe. I had barely slept. I had spent the night staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the rhythm of Evan's breathing from the room next door. At 9 in the morning, the silence was shattered. It was not a polite knock. It was a rhythmic, demanding pounding that shook the front door in its frame. Bang, bang, bang. Pause. Bang, bang, bang. I knew exactly who it was. It was the knock of someone who believed they were owed an audience. It was the knock of a woman who had never been denied entry in her life. I walked to the front window and peered through the slat of the blinds. Marilyn stood on the porch. She was wearing her pristine white wool coat and oversized sunglasses, looking like a celebrity hiding from the paparazzi. In her hand, she clutched a large shiny red gift bag. It was aggressively festive, the kind of metallic red that hurts your eyes. She knocked again, harder this time. Chloe, she called out. Her voice was muffled by the glass, but still carried that edge of performative concern. I know you are in there. Open the door. I brought Evan's things. I stood perfectly still. I was not going to open that door. I was not going to let her breezing into this sanctuary, trailing her perfume and her excuses to rewrite the narrative of last night. If I opened the door, she would cry. She would hug me. She would say I was overreacting. She would force a hug on Evan and make him say thank you. I was not going to let that happen. After 2 minutes of silence, Marilyn huffed. I saw her shoulders drop in an exaggerated display of defeat. She turned around and scanned the street. She looked left, then right, checking to see if any neighbors were watching. It was a performance. She wanted to be seen as the doting HOA president turned away by her ungrateful resident. She set the red bag down on the doormat with a dramatic flourish. She smoothed the tissue paper. Then she marched back to her car, a silver sedan that looked too clean for winter, and drove away. Only when the car disappeared around the corner did I unlock the door. I opened it just wide enough to grab the handles of the bag. The cold air bit at my fingers. I pulled the bag inside and locked the deadbolt immediately. The bag smelled. That was the first thing I noticed. It did not smell like pine or cinnamon or home. It smelled of industrial plastic and cheap synthetic fabric. It was the smell of a discount aisle. I took it to the kitchen table and dumped the contents out. 3 items tumbled onto the wood surface. First, a hoodie. It was a generic gray sweatshirt with no design, stiff and rough to the touch. I checked the tag. Size extra large men's. Evan was 8 years old. He wore a size 8 or 10 in boys' clothing. He would drown in this. It would hang off him like a dress. It was something you grabbed from a rack without looking or something you bought because it was the only thing left on the clearance shelf. Second, a package of plastic cars. I picked it up. The cardboard backing was bent. The cars were brightly colored but flimsy. The kind that snap if you step on them. The age recommendation on the corner read ages 3 and up. Third, a teddy bear. It was small, maybe 6 in tall with synthetic fur that felt greasy. It was holding a felt heart that said, "Be mine." I stared at the bear. Be mine. It was a Valentine's Day leftover. It was not even a Christmas toy. My chest tightened, not with sorrow, but with a burning acidic validation. She had not found these gifts in the storage closet. She had not forgotten to wrap them. I reached into the bottom of the bag and found what I was looking for. The receipt. She had crumpled it, but she had not thrown it away. Marilyn never threw away receipts. She was too obsessed with returns. I smoothed the thermal paper out on the table. Walgreens, Willow Creek. Date December 25th. Time 8:15 in the morning. She had bought these things 45 minutes ago. She had woken up, realized I was serious about leaving, and instead of reflecting on her behavior, she had driven to the only store open on Christmas morning, a drugstore, and grabbed whatever random junk she could find to fill a bag. She had spent a total of $22.14. $22. Yesterday, I had watched the favored kid Liam open a gaming system that cost $500. I had watched the board secretary open a bracelet worth at least $2,000. Mom, I jumped. Evan was standing in the doorway of the kitchen. He was rubbing his eyes, his hair sticking up in tufts. He looked at the pile of sad objects on the table. Marilyn came by, I said, keeping my voice neutral. She left this for you. Evan walked over to the table. He did not run. He did not smile. He approached the gifts like a bomb disposal expert approaching a suspicious package. He touched the stiff gray hoodie. He looked at the plastic cars for toddlers. He looked at the Valentine's bear. He stood there for a long time. The silence stretched out, heavy and uncomfortable. I wanted to snatch the things away and throw them in the trash before they could hurt him. But I knew he needed to see this. He needed to understand who she was so he would stop blaming himself. Finally, he looked up at me. His eyes were clear, terrifyingly intelligent. Mom, he said, did she buy this because she missed me or because she is scared you are mad? The question took the breath out of my lungs. He was 8. He should be asking if he could open the package. He should not be analyzing the geopolitical motivations of the HOA president. I think, I said, choosing my words carefully, that she bought them because she wanted to fix a problem. She wanted to make the problem go away. Evan nodded. He understood. He was the problem. I don't want them, he said. You don't have to keep them. I assured him. We can leave them right here. No, he said. I want to give them away. Can we take them to the donation box? The one by the grocery store. Are you sure? Yeah. He picked up the bear. Maybe a smaller kid will like the cars. And maybe someone big needs a sweater. I hope another kid likes them. I don't want them in our house. He was rejecting her penance. He was rejecting the lie. Okay, I said. Get your coat. We will go right now. We drove to the donation bin in the parking lot of the local grocery store. The streets were empty. Everyone else was home with their families, playing with their new toys, eating cinnamon rolls. We were dumping a bag of drugstore panic buys into a metal chute. When Evan dropped the bag in, I saw a weight lift off his shoulders. He dusted his hands off on his jeans as if washing himself clean of the transaction. Can we get pancakes now? He asked. We can get all the pancakes, I said. When we got back to the townhouse, Mrs. Klein was outside salting her driveway. Mrs. Klein was 70 years old, lived next door for 30 years and saw everything. She leaned on her shovel as I pulled into the driveway. I told Evan to go inside and warm up. I walked over to the property line. Merry Christmas, Mrs. Klein, I said. She looked at me, her face lined with a lifetime of winter winds. She shook her head. I saw your president this morning putting on quite a show with that red bag. I know, I said. She looked around 3 times to make sure I was watching. Mrs. Klein said, chuckling darkly. Marilyn always did like an audience. I saw you leave last night, too. Saw you carrying the boy out. I stiffened. It was time to go. Mrs. Klein tapped her shovel on the pavement. It was time to go 20 years ago. Honey, I have watched that woman treat you like the help since you moved in. Always her circle this, her circle that, and you were just there to fix the spreadsheets. I felt a sudden stinging pressure behind my eyes. Validation is a strange drug. You do not realize how starved you are for it until a stranger hands it to you. She forgot Evan, I said. My voice cracked. She bought 36 gifts for her inner circle. She forgot Evan existed. Mrs. Klein did not look shocked. She looked resigned. That sounds about right. Cruelty is a habit. Chloe, it does not just pop up overnight. I looked at this woman, this neighbor who had watched my life from across the hedge. An idea formed in my mind. A cold strategic idea. Mrs. Klein, I said, would you be willing to write that down? She looked at me confused. Write what down? What you just said. That you saw her leave the bag this morning. That you have seen the favoritism for years. Just a short note. Date it and sign it. She studied my face. She saw the desperation and the resolve. You going to court? I think I might end up there. I said. They are going to try to say I am crazy. They are going to say I'm keeping Evan away for no reason. Mrs. Klein nodded slowly. She jammed the shovel into a snowbank. I will write it. I will write that she looked like she was acting in a soap opera this morning. 2. I have never liked that woman. Too much hairspray. Not enough heart. Thank you, I said. You have no idea what that means. I went inside. My phone was buzzing again. It was a text from Tori. You need to stop ignoring Marilyn. She went out of her way to bring gifts over and you locked her out. You are acting like a child. If you do not come back and apologize, we are going to make this a big deal. You are embarrassing the neighborhood. We are going to make this a big deal. It was a threat, implicit, but clear. They were used to controlling the narrative. If I did not get back in line, they would destroy my reputation. They would paint me as the unstable, bitter single mother who ruined the spectacular. I sat down at my laptop. I opened the folder I had created the night before. Timeline. I created a new document. December 26th, 9 in the morning. Incident. Marilyn attempts to deliver makeup gifts. Evidence receipt. Timestamped 8:15 in the morning from Walgreens. Items inappropriate age size gifts XL hoodie toddler toys total value approximate $22 witness Mrs. Klein neighbor statement pending regarding Marilyn's performative behavior and historical pattern of favoritism. Evan's reaction to stress questioned if gifts were result of fear rather than affection requested to donate items immediately. I saved the document then I took a screenshot of Tori's text. December 26th, 10:30 in the morning. Board Secretary Tori Crow. Contempt threatens escalation. If I do not apologize for protecting my son. Acknowledges Marilyn's visit, but ignores the quality timing of the gifts. I was building a wall brick by brick, document by document. I realized then that the makeup gift was never about Evan. It was not an apology. It was a prop. Marilyn needed to be able to say I tried to give him gifts and she refused them. She needed the visual of the red bag on the porch. The receipt proving she bought them at a gas station drugstore 10 minutes prior did not matter to her because she never expected anyone to check the receipt. She thought I would just be grateful for the scraps. She thought a $20 bag of junk would buy my silence. But she had miscalculated. She had bought cheap plastic. But she had paid for it with the last shred of my loyalty. I looked at the empty table where the red bag had been. The smell of cheap plastic still lingered faintly in the air. Mom, Evan called from the living room. I found a documentary about sharks. Coming. I called back. I closed the laptop. They wanted to make it a big deal. Fine. I was ready. I had the receipt. I had the witness. And I had a son who knew the difference between a gift given in love and a bribe given in fear. I was not just documenting a bad Christmas. I was documenting the systemic failure of an HOA. And unlike the plastic cars they had bought for my son, my evidence was not going to break. The drive back to our real home 3 hours away from Willow Creek felt like an escape from a pressurized submarine. As we put miles between us and the toxicity of the HOA, the air in the car seemed to change, becoming lighter, thinner, easier to breathe. When we finally walked into our own apartment, it was quiet. It was a small 2-bedroom space. Nothing like the sprawling suburban estates I had left behind. But for the first time, I saw it for what it was, a fortress. But fortresses can feel lonely. And I could see Evan looking at the walls of his bedroom with a critical, almost sad eye. It was a generic room, beige walls, a hand-me-down dresser, a bedspread that was practical rather than exciting. It was the room of a child who lived in the background. We are changing it, I announced on Saturday morning over breakfast. Evan looked up from his cereal, milk dripping from his spoon. Changing what? Your room, I said. Everything. The color, the layout, the vibe. It is a new year and you need a new headquarters. For a second, I saw that hesitation in his eyes, the learned reflex that asking for things resulted in disappointment. Is it expensive? He asked. Do not worry about the money, I said. And for the first time in my life, I meant it without a caveat. I was not saving for HOA events with people who did not want us. I was not hoarding cash for a bailout the board might need. I have a budget and it is all for you. Get your shoes on. We are going to the hardware store. The trip to the paint aisle was the first time I saw a spark return to his eyes since Christmas. He stood in front of the wall of color chips, overwhelmed. Pick whatever you want, I told him. Orange, neon green. It is your space. He gravitated toward the blues. He pulled a card that was a deep, rich navy, almost black. The name on the card was Midnight Sapphire. It is too dark, he mumbled, about to put it back. Marilyn says dark colors make rooms look small. Marilyn does not live here, I said firmly. I took the card from his hand. It looks like the night sky. We can get glow-in-the-dark stars. It will be like sleeping in a planetarium. A slow smile spread across his face. Really? Really? Let's get 2 gallons. That afternoon, our apartment became a disaster zone, and it was beautiful. We pushed the furniture to the center of the room and covered the floor with drop cloths. I put an old, oversized t-shirt on Evan and we cracked the cans open. The painting process was chaotic. I was not a professional. I was a mom with a roller and a determination to scrub away the beige of the past. We had music blasting some terrible pop playlist Evan liked and we were singing off-key. Then it happened. Evan was trying to reach a high spot near the window frame. He stretched too far. The roller slipped from his hand and it clattered to the floor. It missed the drop cloth by 2 inches. A thick dark blue splat exploded onto the beige carpet, hitting the white baseboard and spraying onto the closet door. The music seemed to stop. Evan froze. His shoulders hunched up to his ears and he squeezed his eyes shut. He stopped breathing. He was waiting for the explosion. He was waiting for the yelling, the look what you did, the why are you so clumsy, the sounds that defined his interactions with the board. I froze too, but not out of anger. I froze because I saw his terror and it broke my heart. I put my roller down and walked over to him. I knelt down so I was at his eye level. Evan, I said. He flinched. I am sorry. I will clean it. I am sorry. I reached out and dipped my finger into the puddle of blue paint on the carpet. Then, very deliberately, I bopped him on the nose with it. He opened his eyes, cross-eyed, looking at the blue smudge on his face. It is just paint, bud, I said, grinning. It dries, or we scrub it, or we paint the carpet blue, too. Who cares? He blinked. You are not mad. I am not mad, I said. Accidents happen. Besides, now you look like a smurf. He let out a breath that sounded like a tire deflating, and then he giggled. It was a rusty sound, but it was there. He dipped his finger in the paint and swiped it across my cheek. Now you are a smurf, too, he said. We laughed until our sides hurt. We cleaned the carpet mostly and painted over the baseboard. The room was imperfect. There were streaks. The trim was a little wobbly, but it was ours. While we were waiting for the first coat to dry, Evan took a permanent marker from the supply pile. Can I write something? He asked. Before we put the second coat on, like a secret message. Go for it, I said, turning to pour more paint into the tray. He went to the corner of the room behind where his bed would go. He wrote carefully, his tongue sticking out in concentration. When he was done, he stepped back. I walked over to read it. I expected him to write his name or maybe Evan's room instead in small jagged block letters. He had written, "Community is who remembers you." I stared at the black ink on the dark blue wall. It was profound and devastatingly simple. He had decoded the complex trauma of last week into a single rule of life. That is a good rule, I said, my voice thick. I know, he said. I do not want to forget it. We painted over it with the second coat of midnight sapphire, sealing the promise into the very walls of the house. 2 days later, I received an email from Evan's teacher, Ms. Parker. The subject line was simply meeting request. Evan. My stomach dropped. In the past, emails from school usually meant Evan had forgotten homework or was being too quiet in class. I immediately assumed the fallout from Christmas was affecting his grades. I arrived at the school at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Ms. Parker was a young woman with kind eyes and a messy bun. The kind of teacher who actually listened to kids rather than just managing them. She sat me down at one of the low tables. Is everything okay? I asked, gripping my purse. Is Evan acting out? No, not at all, Ms. Parker said, smiling reassuringly. Actually wanted to share something with you. We had a writing assignment yesterday. The prompt was, Who appears in my life? It was meant to be about community helpers and family. She slid a piece of lined paper across the table. I recognized Evan's handwriting immediately. My mom is the biggest person in my life. She drives me to school and she makes sure I have the right socks. She works at a computer building numbers, but she always answers when I talk. Some people have big neighborhoods with lots of HOA events and parties. I have those, too. But they are like ghosts. They are there, but they do not see me. At the Christmas party, the president forgot I was in the room for 3 hours. My mom saw me. She took me home. So now my community is just my mom. And that is better because I do not have to be invisible. I read the paragraph twice. The lack of self-pity was what struck me. He was not whining. He was reporting the facts of his existence like a journalist. They are like ghosts. I wanted to show you this, Ms. Parker said gently, because it is incredibly mature, and also because I have noticed a change in him this week. He is quieter, but more solid, like he has stopped trying to please an imaginary audience. We had a rough holiday, I admitted. Looking up, I decided to cut ties with the HOA. It sounds like you made the right choice for him, she said. Evan has a brilliant mind. Ms. Reed, he observes everything. I think he needs a place to channel that observation where he feels successful. I run the after-school robotics and science club. I think he would thrive there. It is all about building things and solving problems. Logic. I think he would like the logic. He loves building, I said, thinking of the Lego set Marilyn never bought. He would love that. I will sign him up, she said. It starts next Tuesday. Leaving the school, I felt a strange sense of validation. The world was not ending because I had walked out on the HOA. In fact, the world was opening up. I drove straight to the Northbridge Analytics Group headquarters. I had a meeting with the senior director at 4. Usually, I walked into these meetings feeling like an imposter, worried that my personal chaos would somehow bleed into my professional competence. But today, I walked in wearing a suit that was crisp and sharp. I had saved $22,000 in future expenses by cutting off the HOA. I had reclaimed my dignity. I felt dangerous in the best way. Chloe, the director said, pointing to the screen, your analysis on the supply chain merger was flawless. We found the leak thanks to your timeline. The data does not lie, I said. We have a new project, he said. Project Orion. It is a massive audit for a tech conglomerate. It comes with a significant raise and a performance bonus structure. We want you to lead it. I looked at the file he pushed toward me. It was the kind of project that could secure our future. It meant college tuition. It meant a house one day that we owned, not rented under HOA rules. It meant I never had to answer a text from Frank asking for $500 ever again. I will take it, I said that night to celebrate the new room and the new job. Evan and I ordered a large pepperoni pizza. We sat on the living room floor surrounded by the smell of drying paint and melted cheese. Evan was talking about the robotics club. Ms. Parker says we get to build a bot that can follow a line on the floor, he said, chewing enthusiastically. And if we are good, we can enter a competition. You will be great at it, I said. You have the mind of an engineer. I want to build a telescope next, he said, looking at the ceiling. Since my room is the night sky now, I want to see the real one. We can do that, I said. We can save up for a real telescope. A big one. Can we see Saturn? We can see everything. I promised. Later that night, after Evan was asleep in his dark blue room, glow-in-the-dark stars faintly luminous above his head, I sat at my computer. I had one last piece of housekeeping to do. I opened the folder on my desktop. I found the file named Christmas Incident Evidence. I found the live photo of Evan sitting alone while the others opened gifts. I found the screenshots of the texts. I connected my external hard drive. I dragged the entire folder over, copying, 100% complete. I ejected the drive and put it in my fireproof lockbox. I was not going to post the video on social media. I was not going to send it to the neighborhood group chat to start a fight. That was their way. Public shaming and drama. My way was different. This was insurance. This was a shield. I understood now what Evan had written on the wall. Community is who remembers you. Marilyn and the board did not remember us. They only remembered what we could do for them. They remembered my bank account. They remembered Evan only when he was a prop for a photo. But I remembered. I remembered the way Evan's hand felt in mine when we walked out. I remembered the look on his face when I bopped his nose with blue paint. I remembered the taste of the pizza and the silence of a home that was finally safe. I was done trying to buy my way into a neighborhood that did not exist. I was busy building a new one coat of paint at a time, and this one was going to last. The silence I had fought so hard to build lasted exactly 4 days. When you cut off an HOA president's supply of attention and money, they do not just go away. They panic. And when they panic, they try to rewrite the script. I had blocked their numbers, their emails, and their neighborhood app profiles. But I had underestimated their commitment to the narrative that I was the villain and they were the benevolent martyrs. It started with the mail. I walked out to the mailbox on a Tuesday afternoon, expecting nothing more than utility bills and flyers for pizza coupons. Instead, I found a stack of envelopes. They were thick, cream-colored, and made of heavy cardstock. violation notices, late dues, selective enforcement citations. I opened the first one. Failure to participate in community spirit event, $250 fine. I opened the second. Unauthorized departure from approved holiday gathering, $150 fine. I opened the third. Noncompliance with neighborly conduct clause, pending review for expulsion. They were coming for me. The silence of the good resident was gone, replaced by the noise of open warfare. Wednesday was dedicated to Sloan Mercer's office. Sloan had turned her conference table into a color-coded map of the HOA's dysfunction. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. Red is fraud. Sloan explained, pointing to the thickest stack. This included the credit card statements, the receipts from GameStop and Nordstrom, and the board chat screenshot where Tori bragged about the loot. Blue is neglect. She continued. This stack held the calendar of missed birthdays. The emails where Marilyn forgot Evan's name and the timeline of the Christmas incident. Green is manipulation, she said, tapping a pile of screenshots. Tori's threatening texts, the ambush at the grocery store, the makeup gift receipt, and yellow, Sloan said, handing me a thin folder is character. This is us. This is Evan's report card, his attendance record, the letter from MS. Parker, and your own clean mental health evaluation. She sat on the edge of the table. Chloe, we have the evidence. But evidence does not win cases on its own. The narrative wins. And right now their narrative is that you are an angry, vindictive woman. We need to dismantle that. How? By being boring, Sloan said. When you are on the stand or if the judge asks you a question, you cannot be sarcastic. You cannot be the woman who told the treasurer to ask Tori to sell her bracelet, even though that was hilarious. You have to be the rock. You are sad, not mad. You are disappointed, not vengeful. You are protecting Evan, not punishing Marilyn. I nodded. Sad, not mad. Go look in the mirror, Sloan said, pointing to the bathroom attached to her office. Practice. Ask yourself, why are you doing this? I went into the bathroom. The fluorescent lights were unforgiving. I looked at the dark circles under my eyes, the tension in my jaw. Why are you doing this? Because I hate them, I whispered. No, that was the old answer. That was the answer they wanted. I took a deep breath. I smoothed my hair. I looked my reflection in the eye. I am doing this, I said aloud, my voice steady, because my son deserves to know he exists. I am doing this because belonging is not a transaction. I walked back out. Sloan nodded. That is the face. Keep that face. Thursday brought the final attempt at an ambush. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I was picking Evan up from the science center. He had just started the robotics club and was obsessed with his line-following bot. I was waiting in the lobby watching the door when I saw a familiar SUV pull up to the curb. It was Tori's. My stomach dropped. Sloan had warned me about this. They will try to provoke a scene. They want a video of Evan crying or you screaming. Tori got out. She wasn't alone. She had brought Sophie, her 7-year-old daughter. Sophie was holding a brightly colored gift bag. They were using a child as a shield. Tori spotted me through the glass doors. She didn't come in. She stood on the sidewalk right where Evan would have to pass to get to my car. She bent down and whispered something to Sophie, smoothing her hair. The doors of the science center opened and a gaggle of kids poured out. Evan was in the middle talking excitedly to a boy with glasses. I moved fast. I pushed through the double doors and walked straight toward Evan, intercepting him before he reached the sidewalk. Mom, he said, holding up a circuit board. Look, I made the light blink. That is amazing, but, I said, keeping my body between him and the street. Listen, we are going to walk to the car very quickly today. Okay. We are playing secret agent. Why? Then he saw them. Aunt Tori, he whispered. Tori saw him looking. She waved frantically. She nudged Sophie forward. Evan, Tori called out, her voice loud enough to turn heads. Evan, look, Sophie brought you a present. Come say hi to your neighbor. Don't be mean. The words were calculated. Don't be mean. She was already framing his hesitation as cruelty. Evan froze. He clutched his circuit board to his chest. He looked at Sophie, who looked confused and uncomfortable, holding the bag out like a prop. Go on. Evan, Tori shouted. Your mom won't mind. Come give us a hug. I saw the phone in Tori's other hand. She was recording. She wanted the shot of me dragging him away. She wanted the footage of the evil mother keeping kids apart. I put a hand on Evan's shoulder. Do you want to go over there? I asked quietly. No, he said. She looks scary. Then you don't have to. I turned and faced Tori. I did not scream. I did not flip her off. I did not give her the angry content she was desperate for. I simply held up my hand in a stop motion. Firm. Final. We are not interested. Tori, I said. My voice was calm, caring just enough to be heard. Please stop using children to fight adult battles. It is inappropriate. Then I guided Evan to the car. But I have a gift, Tori shrieked, her facade cracking. You are abusing him, Chloe. You are sick. I buckled Evan in. I got into the driver's seat. I locked the doors. As I drove away, I saw Tori still standing on the curb, phone raised, shouting at my taillights. Sophie had lowered the gift bag to the ground, looking miserable. Is Sophie mad at me? Evan asked from the back seat. No, I said. Sophie is just doing what her mom told her to do, just like you used to do. I don't do that anymore, Evan said softly. No, I said. You don't. That night, the house was very quiet. It was the silence before the storm. The hearing was at 9 the next morning. I was in the kitchen organizing the final copies of the exhibits for the judge when Evan came in. He was holding a piece of lined notebook paper. Mom. Hey pal. You should be asleep. Big day tomorrow. I know. He said I wrote something for school. No. He said for the judge. You said I didn't have to talk if I didn't want to. But what if I want to say something, but I get too scared? He handed me the paper. It was written in his neat cursive, the kind he only used for final drafts. To the judge. My name is Evan Reed. I am 8 years old. The HOA wants me to attend their events, but I do not want to go. When I'm at their parties, I feel like I'm invisible. At the Christmas spectacular, they gave everyone presents, but they forgot me. I sat there for a long time and nobody looked at me. My mom saw me. She took me home. I want to stay away from the HOA because she remembers me. She knows what I like. She doesn't make me feel small. Please don't make me go back to the place where I'm a ghost. Sincerely, Evan. I read the letter, then I read it again. The tears came hot and fast, blurring the ink. I want to stay away from the HOA because she remembers me. It was the most powerful testimony I had ever read. It stripped away all the legal arguments, all the financial fraud, all the complexity, and distilled the case down to its human essence. Is it okay? Evan asked, worried by my tears. It is perfect, I said, wiping my eyes. It is the best letter I have ever read. We will give this to the judge. You are so brave, Evan. I just told the truth, he said. That is what makes it brave. I told him. I tucked him into bed. I sat there for a long time watching the rise and fall of his chest. Sloan had warned me that tomorrow would be brutal. Marilyn would cry on the stand. Her lawyer would try to paint me as a bitter, unstable single mother who had brainwashed her son. They would bring up my therapy sessions from 5 years ago. They would bring up the time I lost my job in my 20s. They would throw every piece of mud they could find. But as I walked back to the kitchen and looked at the stack of evidence, I realized something. They were bringing mud. I was bringing steel. I picked up the file labeled the smoking gun, the credit card statements, the board chat, the proof that they had funded their golden life with my sweat, and then sued me when the tap ran dry. They still thought I was Chloe the doormat. They thought I would crumble under the pressure of a courtroom. They thought I would settle in the hallway to avoid the embarrassment. They had no idea who was walking into that courthouse tomorrow. I turned off the lights in the kitchen. The timeline on the wall was shadowed. But I knew every data point by heart. I wasn't going back to the old roll. That roll died on Christmas Eve. Somewhere between the 35th gift and the 36th. Tomorrow the world would see the new Chloe, and she wasn't coming to negotiate. She was coming to close the account permanently. The courtroom smelled of floor wax, old paper, and the specific acrid scent of nervous sweat. It was room 304 of the Willow Creek Small Claims Court, a place where neighborhoods usually came to die. I sat on the left side of the aisle, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Sloane Mercer sat beside me, looking like a statue carved from ice and granite. She was arranging her files with terrifying precision, color-coded, tabbed, and lethal. On the other side, the performance had already begun. Marilyn was wearing a soft powder blue suit. It was a calculated choice. It screamed harmless president. She had a lace handkerchief clutched in her hand, which she dabbed at dry eyes every time the judge looked in her direction. Behind her, Tori sat in the gallery, leaning forward like a stage director, making sure the actors hit their marks. Frank was there, too, staring at his shoes, looking like a man who wished he could dissolve into the floorboards. Judge Vance entered. He was an older man with a face that looked like it had been chiseled out of oak. He did not smile. He sat down, adjusted his glasses, and looked at the petition. "We are here regarding the matter of Crow versus Reed," Judge Vance said. His voice was deep and bored. "Petition for HOA enforcement and fines. Mr. Holloway, you may proceed." Marilyn's lawyer, a man with a comb-over and a suit that was slightly too shiny, stood up. "Your Honor," Holloway began, his voice dripping with faux sincerity. "This case is a tragedy. A simple tragedy. My client, Mrs. Marilyn Crow, is a devoted HOA president who has been forcibly cut off from a resident due to a misunderstanding. A minor oversight occurred at the Christmas Spectacular, a chaotic holiday. As we all know, gifts were misplaced. It was a mistake. But instead of handling this like an adult, the respondent, Ms. Reed, suffered a severe emotional episode. She stormed out, traumatized the child, and has since engaged in a campaign of alienation. We are simply asking to restore the bond that this unstable behavior has severed. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. Unstable, misplaced gifts. Sloane placed a hand on my arm. Her touch was cool. "Breathe," she whispered. "Let him dig the hole." Holloway went on for 10 minutes, painting a picture of a loving traditional neighborhood destroyed by a bitter neurotic resident. Marilyn sniffled on cue. Tori nodded solemnly from the back row. When he finished, Judge Vance turned to Sloane. "Ms. Mercer." Sloane stood up. She did not use flowery language. She did not use adjectives. "Your Honor," Sloane said, "the petitioner claims this was a minor oversight. We argue that it was a calculated act of exclusion that fits a historic pattern of neglect. But rather than argue semantics, I would like to show the court exactly what this oversight looked like." She held up a flash drive. "I request permission to play exhibit a video footage from the night in question." Holloway jumped up. "Objection. This is highly prejudicial. It is a recording of the event that sparked this litigation." Judge Vance said overruled. "Play it." Sloane connected the drive to the court's AV system. A large screen on the wall flickered to life. The audio filled the courtroom. First, the cheering, the laughter, the sound of tearing paper. Then the image resolved. The mountain of gifts, the golden lights, and Evan. For 3 minutes, the courtroom watched my son sit in the corner of the frame. We saw him inch forward. We saw him retreat. We saw the pile of gifts for Liam and Sophie grow into a fortress, while the space in front of Evan remained starkly, brutally empty. The silence in the courtroom was heavy. It was not the bored silence of procedure. It was the uncomfortable silence of witnessing cruelty. When the video ended with me leading Evan out of the room, no one spoke. The minor oversight defense had just died on the screen. Sloane let the silence hang for a beat before calling Marilyn to the stand. Marilyn walked up, clutching her handkerchief. She looked at the judge with wide, pleading eyes. "Mrs. Crow," Sloane began, her voice deceptively light. "You claim in your affidavit that you have a substantial and meaningful relationship with the neighborhood children. Is that correct?" "Oh, yes," Marilyn said, her voice trembling. "I love them more than anything. They are my heart." "I see," Sloane said. "Since you are so close, surely you can help the court with some basic details. What is the name of Evan's homeroom teacher this year?" Marilyn blinked. She looked at her lawyer. Then she looked back at Sloane. "Well, I believe it is Mrs. Smith. It is Ms. Parker," Sloane said. "Strike one. What is Evan's shoe size?" Marilyn's fingers tightened on the railing. "He is growing so fast it is hard to keep track. Maybe a size 4. "He wears a size 2, Sloane said. "Strike 2. What is the name of the club Evan joined last week?" "The one he is most excited about." Marilyn looked panicked now. The doting president mask was slipping. "I don't know. Chloe keeps these things from me. He joined it before Christmas." Sloane corrected. "You didn't know because you never asked. But let's go back further." Sloane walked to the table and picked up a piece of paper. "Exhibit C." She announced a birthday card sent 2 years ago. "It wishes Evan a happy 7th birthday. He was turning 6. Can you explain why a president with a substantial relationship does not know a resident child's age?" "It was a mistake," Marilyn snapped. "I have many children in the neighborhood. You have 4 favored ones," Sloane said. "That is not a legion. It is 4. Sloane then held up the letter Marilyn had sent me, the one claiming HOA rights. "You speak a lot about your rights, Mrs. Crow," Sloane said. "But the law requires a relationship, and it seems the only relationship you are interested in is one of control." "I wanted to make it up to him," Marilyn cried, turning to the judge. "I tried to give him gifts the next day. She locked me out." "Ah, yes, the makeup gifts," Sloane said. "The toddler toys bought at a drugstore. We have that receipt. But let's talk about the gifts you did buy on Christmas Eve." The atmosphere in the room shifted. This was the pivot. The trap was set. Sloane walked back to our table and picked up the thick stack of financial documents. She held them like a weapon. "Mrs. Crow," Sloane said, her voice dropping an octave, becoming hard and sharp. "You testified that the lack of gifts for Evan was an accident because you were overwhelmed shopping for the others. Is that right?" "Yes," Marilyn said, sniffing. "I was so busy. And shopping is expensive, isn't it?" Sloane asked. 36 gifts. Electronics, jewelry, designer clothes. It must have cost a fortune. "We spoil them," Marilyn said defensively. "We are generous people." "Generous," Sloane repeated. She handed a document to the bailiff to give to the judge. "Your Honor, I am submitting Exhibit F. These are credit card statements from a Visa account ending in 4589. She turned back to Marilyn. "Mrs. Crow, do you recognize this account?" Marilyn squinted at the paper. Then her face went drain white. The color vanished so fast it looked like a magic trick. I have a card for emergencies, she stammered. This is an account owned by Chloe Reed. Sloane said loudly. You are an authorized user for medical emergencies. Yet, on December 24th and 25th, this card was used to purchase $3,800 worth of merchandise at GameStop, Nordstrom, Best Buy, and the Apple Store. The courtroom gasped. Even the stenographer looked up. Did you use my client's money to buy the gifts for your inner circle? Sloane asked. No, Marilyn shouted. I thought it was my card. They look alike. They are different colors, Sloane said. And yours was declined 3 months ago because you maxed it out. But if you are claiming it was an accident, let's look at Exhibit G. Sloane projected the screenshot of the board chat onto the screen. The text from Tori was blown up to the size of a billboard. The president loots the vault and we reap the rewards. And Marilyn's reply. She won't notice. She never checks that card. Just enjoy it. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the silence of a lie being utterly, irrevocably destroyed. Judge Vance stared at the screen. Then he looked at Marilyn. His expression was one of profound disgust. Mrs. Crow, the judge said. His voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the room. Did you write that text? Marilyn opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She looked at her lawyer, but Mr. Holloway was busy studying his fingernails, distancing himself from the blast radius. It was a joke, Marilyn whispered. A joke? Sloane pounced. You forgot a resident child. You left him with nothing. But you remembered his mother's credit card number well enough to buy a diamond bracelet for your board secretary. You didn't just neglect Evan. Mrs. Crow, you financed his exclusion with his own mother's money. Sloane turned to the judge. Your Honor, the petitioner claims she wants enforcement out of love. The evidence suggests she wants access to the respondent to maintain financial control. This lawsuit was filed 4 days after Ms. Reed cut off the money. This is not a community case. It is an extortion attempt. Judge Vance took off his glasses. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. He looked tired. I have heard enough from the adults, Judge Vance said. He looked toward the back of the room where the bailiff was waiting. Is the child here? Yes, Your Honor, Sloane said. He is in the waiting room. Bring him in. I felt a surge of panic. It is okay, Sloane whispered. He is ready. Evan walked in. He was wearing his best shirt and a tie I had helped him tie that morning. He looked small in the big room, but he walked with his head up. He didn't look at Marilyn. He didn't look at Tori. He walked straight to the chair the bailiff pulled out for him. Judge Vance leaned forward. His face softened. Hello, Evan. Hi, Evan said. You are not in trouble, the judge said. I just want to ask you a question and I want you to tell me the truth. You don't have to worry about hurting anyone's feelings. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Evan said. The HOA wants you to attend their events on weekends. The judge said. How does that make you feel? Evan gripped the arms of the chair. He looked at me. I nodded slightly. Be the wall. Evan looked back at the judge. I don't want to go, he said clearly. Why not? Because when I am there, I feel like a ghost, Evan said. His voice did not waver. They buy presents for everyone else. They talk to everyone else. And when I try to talk, they tell me to be quiet. I don't want to go to a place where people forget I am real. He paused, then added the line he had written in his letter. I want to stay with my mom. She remembers me. She knows I exist. Marilyn let out a sob, a loud theatrical sound. Evan, honey, that is not true. Order. Judge Vance slammed his gavel. One more outburst, Mrs. Crow, and I will hold you in contempt. He looked back at Evan. Thank you, Evan. You are a very brave young man. Judge Vance shuffled his papers. He didn't need to deliberate. He didn't need a recess. The court finds, Judge Vance said, his voice ringing with finality, that the petitioners have failed to establish a substantial relationship with the child. Furthermore, the court finds that forced participation would be detrimental to the child's emotional well-being. He looked at Marilyn over the rim of his glasses. Mrs. Crow, your behavior, both regarding the child and the financial exploitation of his mother, is reprehensible. You have treated this boy as an accessory to your ego and his mother as a bank account. That ends today. The petition for enforcement is dismissed with prejudice. The judge ruled. That means you cannot file this again. I am also issuing a permanent restraining order preventing you or your agents, he glared at Tori, from approaching the child at his school or home. He turned to Sloan. Regarding the financial matters, Ms. Mercer, we will be filing a separate civil suit for the recovery of funds and damages for fraud. Sloan said, I look forward to seeing that on my docket, the judge said dryly. Case closed. The gavel came down. Bang! It was over. Marilyn collapsed into her chair, weeping into her lace handkerchief, but nobody was watching her. Tori was already on her phone, furiously typing, probably trying to spin the story before the court records became public. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but my heart was light. I walked over to Evan. He hopped off the chair and wrapped his arms around my waist. I hugged him so tight I thought I might crush him. Did I do good? He whispered. You did perfect, I said. You were the best part. We walked out of the courtroom. We walked past my father figure Frank, who wouldn't meet my eyes. We walked past Marilyn, who reached out a hand as I passed. Chloe, she choked out. Please, I am your president. I stopped. I looked down at her. I saw the fear in her eyes. Not the fear of losing me, but the fear of the consequences, the fear of the lawsuit, the fear of the bills she would now have to pay herself. No, I said softly. You are just a woman who owes me $4,852. You will be hearing from my lawyer. I took Evan's hand. We pushed through the heavy double doors and stepped out into the hallway. Sloan was waiting for us. She gave me a rare, genuine smile. Civil suit starts Monday, she said. We are going to get every penny back plus interest. Thank you, Sloan, I said. Go get some pizza, she said. You earned it. We walked out of the courthouse and into the bright, cold winter afternoon. The sun was shining on the snow, making it sparkle like diamonds. Real diamonds, not the kind bought with stolen credit cards. Evan took a deep breath. It smells good out here, he said. It smells like freedom, I said. Can we go to the science store? He asked. I need a new motor for my bot. We can go anywhere you want, I said. We walked down the steps, leaving the weight of 5 years of neglect behind us. I didn't need their apology. I didn't need their forgiveness. I didn't even need them to understand. I had my son. I had my dignity. And for the first time in my life, the ledger was balanced. We walked toward the car. Two people who had been forgotten, who had decided to remember each other, and that was enough. That was everything.